The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. So thrilled to be here with you on this wonderful Wednesday morning. You know I love Wednesday. On Wednesday we start out with Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Grampichet is going to be with us to answer your questions live. And then in the second hour we have Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson will be joining me, as will a wonderful gentleman who is a semi-regular on our show, Vince Redmond, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist. He's going to be joining us today to talk about anxiety and autism. And we're going to be looking at this from slightly different perspective than we talk about it a lot. We talk a lot about the anxiety that individuals on the spectrum are going through. But in particular today, we're going to talk about the anxiety that the parents go through and how that in turn affects the kids and what we can do about that that's positive. Vince is going to be here with us to talk about that. We're also going to give you an update on that run, the Autism Care and Treatment Today run for military families that is just, I believe, 10 days away. I know that I have a team for my son. Nancy has a team for her son. We're hoping that some of you will either run virtually with one of our boys. You can pick Team Nancy or Team Shannon, or you can create your own team, which we encourage you to do. We'll give you an update on that as well. Want to remind you that this entire show is meant to be interactive. We want to hear from you. We want to know your thoughts, concerns, questions. Kelby's going to show you some of the different ways that you can participate with us, while I remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, so much to do. Please, please, please sign up for our email list so that we can keep you up to date on some very exciting things that are happening around here. You'll have up-to-date information. That's totally free to do. And we don't inundate you with information, just stuff that you guys have told us is really useful about when people are going to be on the show. Also want to let you know that there's a live feature on that site. If you put your cursor in the white box that says your comment, you can type, hit enter, and it will show up here on my screen. I want to remind you that you don't have to go through a login process. You don't have to remember a username or a password, and no one is interested in knowing what your first or last name are, what your street address is, or what your credit card account number is. Isn't that lovely and refreshing? But we want to know your thoughts and feelings, so please participate by using that live feature. Because it is, I'm talking so fast because I'm so excited, I'm forgetting to swallow. But because it is anonymous, and we think that that's important, we do want to remind you that if you'd like us to get back to you about something specific, you can leave us personal information on that forum. We just won't share it with the folks at home. How's that for a deal? All right, it's time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Grampichet is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Grampichet.
Dr. Grampichet.
Dr. Doreen Grampichet.
Dr. Doreen Grampichet is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Grampichet is here with us. You look so lovely and spring today. So thrilled to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
It's our pleasure always. You are a true expert in the field of autism.
Thank you so much.
You've been so instrumental in this field over the last, we're celebrating 25 years of CARD, but you have been in this field significantly longer than that.
That's right.
An amazing, amazing career, and I love to think that you may only be in the first half of your career, which is pretty amazing to think about.
Well, I don't know if that's true. I don't know that I'll be alive that long, because if you really look at it, it's 36 or 7 years, which is kind of ridiculous.
But in another 36, 7 years, I know people who are practicing at that age. So I have
That's a
hopes.
scary thought.
We're keeping you around. But in any case, you're not only an expert in the field of autism, you're a true visionary.
Thank you so much, Shannon. It's a joy to have this show with you and to help some folks as we
Joy
listen
for
to their
us
problems.
as well. Now, we do want to remind everybody at the start of the show, as we always remind you, that in this format, it's impossible to give individual specific advice. There's no way that those of you who at home, no matter how much information you give Dr. Grandpichet, it's not the same as being able to have an opportunity to
Absolutely.
meet the individual. But having said that, you steer us in directions so that we have more questions to ask, have more ability to look and understand really some of the different factors that are going on that maybe wouldn't have occurred to us.
Right.
And that's so helpful. Every week we get notes and letters back from people saying how helpful this
That's
is for
wonderful.
them. So we're going to jump right in. If that's
sounds
okay
great,
with you.
yes.
Okay. Devastating. I wanted to start with this one in particular this morning.
Gosh, there's so many today.
Yes, so many, and there's more that have come in since I printed this out. But somebody wrote in last night and said, hello, I need help with my nonverbal 4-year-old. He recently lost his younger sibling due to a car accident.
Oh my gosh.
I'm noticing an increase in tantrums, meltdowns, crying, and biting. I think he's grieving. How do I help him deal with his grief? We don't know what or how much he understands. He functions at an 18-month-old level. Thank you so much for your suggestions. And I have to start by saying, you know, obviously you have suffered a loss as well.
Oh my gosh.
And-
I'm just so devastated by this entry here.
Yes.
I can't even imagine what you are going through, and God, you are a strong person, and may the universe give you much more strength to handle all of what you're going through. And if there's anything we can do to help, please call on us to do that. It's very difficult, I can imagine. First of all, I really commend you for putting your child's grief ahead of your own. And that is not an easy thing to do. And as parents, we all hope to be able to do that, but we're never put to the test. So, you know, congratulations to you for thinking of your child first in this case. There's very little that you can do, obviously, because you don't know necessarily what your child is going through. But of course, if we are any person who's going through grief, I would imagine a few things. First is just fill his activities. Is it a boy, right? Yes. Fill his schedule with activities. Keep him busy and distracted. That would be probably a very important thing to do. And because you don't want to add additional demand or make things harder for him, I would suggest that you fill the activities with fun and easy activities right now. And I think if you really do that, that's probably the best thing you can do. In other words, your child will now be engaged in fun and easy activities all of his waking hours, so that he is able to be distracted and be rewarded. Really, other than that, all you can do is hold him, you know, give him a sense of security. He most likely is missing the presence of his younger sibling. And so it will be very important to give him a sense of security. A lot of young children will attach to perhaps a stuffed animal or a blanket or something that helps him feel more secure. I would avoid going to new places, doing anything new that's out of his normal activity level for a month or two, because anything new causes additional anxiety. And so just providing an environment of safety and security and keeping him busy with fun and easy tasks is probably the best thing.
I'm just wondering, I know one of the things that they recommend for adults with grief is, because you mentioned activities, they particularly recommend physical activities as a way of getting the emotions up and moving, and that adults will sometimes, you know, exercise, and then that gives them, that level of tired gives them release, and sometimes they'll cry afterwards. Would we recommend the same thing for kids?
I would imagine that physical activity can only be helpful in this particular time, although I don't know the child and I don't want to force him into anything
Sure.
that he doesn't enjoy. dance, music, that sort of thing might make it more fun of a physical activity. But yeah, I'm aware of the fact that with adults, we tend to release some emotions after physical activity. I'm not sure if he's holding back emotions because he already has meltdowns and tantrums, crying and so on. So I would hate to enhance that and increase that, but you're going to have to bear with it for a little bit.
Yeah, bless his little heart, and we
and
wish
yours,
our best to you and to your entire family as you work through this.
Absolutely.
And do let us know if there's something that we can do to help. Going to move on to another question here. Hello, Shannon and Dr. Doreen. As always, love your show. You guys are amazing. My son is 4.5, is language delay, but slowly improving on his speech. His tantrums and meltdowns are out of control. It's getting harder to deal with his tantrums and behaviors. When on a timeout for hitting, or when he does not get his way, or sometimes we don't even know why, he becomes very mad, hits, breaks, and throws things. It has become unsafe with others or himself. I end up sitting with him many times, now blocking him to avoid hurting others, but I end up all beat up since many times I've held him down as he is screaming since I can't block him, since his meltdowns are too severe. Am I wrong by holding him at this point? I used to walk away, but now I return since he goes after us anyway. Waiting on ABA, so we love that you're moving in that direction towards getting ABA, but they write, what can I do for now? This is hurting us all physically, but mainly emotionally. They say, please help and thanks.
Right, that's a tough situation, and I'm very sorry that you're going through such a difficult situation right now. I would suggest that you do not hold him. I don't think it's productive. I don't think he will aggress towards himself or hurt himself if he is alone. I do suggest that you walk away and do not allow him to escape, to come after you. So I don't know the exact circumstances of the room and where this is occurring and if it's in public and so on, but let's look at the scenario a little bit closer. I mean, you're saying when he does not get his way, and sometimes you don't know exactly why. The times when you don't know exactly why he's hitting, the only possibilities are that he's not getting something. It could be an object, it could be something he wants, it could be an activity he wants, it could be avoidance of an activity. So there's some reason that he's aggressing, and usually we want to try to find out what that is, obviously, because if there's some other form of communication, then aggression will reduce pretty significantly, because why would you aggress when you can communicate that you're upset about something? So by what you are doing right now is you're holding him down and he's screaming, and in the meantime he's having this huge meltdown and he's injuring you, and it's not a good situation. So imagine if what he wanted, and we don't know, but imagine if what he wanted is your attention. And when he screams, you go over there and you hold him and you're giving him tons of attention. So the message he gets is, this is a pretty effective way of me getting this attention. And the behavior will not only continue, it'll increase, because you're essentially rewarding the behavior and saying, any consequence that follows a behavior can either act as a positive consequence or a negative consequence. And the fact that you're holding him, if it was a negative thing for him, the behavior would end. But since the behavior is going on, I can guarantee you that he's not disturbed by you holding it. In fact, he's enjoying you holding him to some extent. So, and that's why the behavior is increasing and continuing. So it's not working. We need to change what we're doing, and the best thing to do is to actually not give him attention. And the best way to do that is to walk away and prevent him from escaping, which means you hold the door. You have to wait until he calms down. If you're concerned about his safety, place a camera in the room. So that you can look at the camera the minute you go outside. It's very important to, this is the general rule, you do not give what the child is trying to gain by doing that inappropriate behavior. And that's your first step. You do not give what they're trying to gain. So if he's trying to gain an object, you prevent him from getting the object. If he's trying to get attention, you don't give attention. And the second step then is to teach the child a different approach, a different way to communicate, and then give him what he wants. And that different approach, that different way to communicate has to be as easy as or easier than the tantrum and the aggression. So it has to be something very, very basic. You know, and that could be something like the picture of an icon on the wall, and you touch it, and then the child gets, he touches it, and then he gets whatever it is he wants. You must figure out what it is he wants. When you get an ABA specialist in there, then they will do a functional assessment and figure out exactly what he wants. Until then, I would say your best bet is to not give him attention.
It's a hard time.
It's a very, very difficult thing.
We talked yesterday on the show about the period of time in which you're waiting for ABA to start. And that there are so many things that are hard along the way. It's hard getting a diagnosis. It's hard having a team of people in your home. The waiting, I have to say, is the hardest part.
It's horrible, yeah.
But I'm so glad that you're using this forum, that you're asking the questions that you're asking, because you're going to be that much further ahead of the game. If there's any way that in the meantime that she can get some help and support so that she can follow through on these things,
exactly.
I just feel like
so that would be, of course,
yourself.
IBT.
Yes.
So what we really recommend is that you should go on the Institute for Behavioral Training website, which is ibehavioraltraining.com, and please look through there. There's a whole section for parents, and you will go through, and there's modules, and there's lots and lots of modules. And I think the parent section is actually the most busy or loaded section. So just pick modules, and I would really recommend the behavior module, which teaches you how to manage challenging behaviors. This is so important. It's not just that you're going to be changing the behavior before your ABA team gets on board. It's just that regardless of what you do or don't do with it, any understanding you have of ABA and how the techniques of ABA work and how they change behavior will help you even when the ABA program starts. So as Shannon said, it'll give you resources to do things now, but it'll also make you into that fantastic parent who understands and can follow through and actually make the therapy better once your program starts. And let me tell you, I think for parents, it's not just the fact that you are engaged and so on. It's just it'll make you feel better, because it's almost like you learn a language that your child speaks. So it's kind of like now you can communicate with your child, and the anxiety about not knowing what to do is gone, and that wall of like, why is he doing this? I don't know what to do, is gone, and you'll know what to do, and it'll be very, very, it's a good thing for parents when they're trained. It's a very empowering feeling.
If I could give you one thing right now, I would say to you that this moment in your life is not going to go on forever, that you're on the cusp of this part being over. You're going to have to walk through some difficult stuff, but know that this is not going to last forever. And I would encourage you to find someone, whether it's your significant other or another family member or a really good girlfriend or a college student that you can hire, but get an ally for now and so that you can have somebody that will give you respite later on when you're getting ABA going on. Mm-hmm. But you can have them do the IBT trainings with you. IBT has a very exciting announcement next week about making this training available to everyone in the month of April. I can't give anything away until next week, but it's very exciting, and I think life-changing for a lot of people. So I want you to know help is coming. It's there for you now as much as you want to do it. Get an ally so that you can get through this period of time. But this won't last forever. It's going to get better.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, we're going to take a short break.
Okay.
And then we're going to be back with more Autism Live after these messages.
Hi, I'm Lisa Ackerman. Welcome back to Talk of Facts. We hear questions all the time, and we want to give you the answers that help make your journey in autism easier and more navigatable. Less than a year ago, we interviewed the top 100 doctors in the United States working with children on the spectrum, and we asked them a question in the cloak of secrecy. What are the top 3 mistakes parents living with autism do? Number 1, and the one that makes me laugh the most, is when they use their physician as a marriage and family therapist. 1, the doctors told me it made them uncomfortable, and 2, they were highly unqualified to provide that type of advice. So the night before your physician appointment with your MAPS doctor, get together with your spouse, significant other, and write out the list of the targets and the agenda that you want to cover at the physician's appointment. Get in sync. Then you'll be definitely spending less time and not making that doctor so uncomfortable. Second thing that was the most common mistakes parents living with autism make is they want to go too fast. And really, you want to pace yourself in the autism journey. We all know that we want to get our kid to be the best they can be and hopefully recover from autism. And what a lot of the doctors have told me is that you want to really pace yourself. 1, to let the labs be your guide, and 2, work with your physician on the prioritization and the delivery of the different medical interventions. The third most common mistake they felt families made was giving up too soon. And what you need to know is they're invested, they're looking at wanting to get the best from your child. But I tell you that when I got that and consolidated the 100 interviews with these physicians, most of the doctors who brought that up had tears in their eyes. They want you to know that they're in the fight with you, and they want you to know that hope is really real. It may take hard work and it may take time, but to not give up and to stay in the game. So let TACA help you. We'll have some more TACA facts for you in the future, real questions and real answers for the autism journey.
Welcome back to Autism Live. So thrilled that we are here for Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Grandpichet is here and she's answering your questions in real time. We've had some pretty devastating questions to start out with.
Yes, we have.
But that's, that's the reality. Going kind of hand in hand with what we were just talking about with tantrums and attention, we've got somebody who's written in and said, hello, my 2-year-old shrieks and screams when we are not playing or feeding him. He doesn't have any words yet. It's driving me crazy. Sometimes it's out of frustration, but I think he also likes the sound he is making. How can I teach him to be quiet? Can I teach a nonverbal toddler to ask for my attention? And thank you so very much.
Yes, you can. I would say it's a little bit more difficult if you don't know for sure when he's screaming or shrieking. If you don't know for sure if he's doing it in order to get food or in order to play. But initially it's going to be a little bit confusing. But here's what you do, and this is not, you don't do this when he's screaming or shrieking. You do this separately, so when he's calm. So you will sit him in his chair and you will have one picture of him and his favorite food, maybe eating his favorite food, and you put that picture in front of him, and then you will model for him or prompt him to touch the picture. And as he touches the picture, or even to give it to you, whichever one, and once he does that, you will give him a bite of that favorite food, okay? And you'll do this 20 times, and then the food is finished. But every time you want to give him a spoon of the food, he has to either touch that picture or give it to you, okay? And you'll do that, and that's that. The next day, you will come back, and you will do that again. And you do that until he gets to a point where if the picture is just on the table, he will, and you have the food in your hand, you don't have to prompt him anymore. He now gets it that, oh, this picture, if I touch the picture, they'll give me that food. So you do that repetitively a few days until he gets that message. Now, and it could take a while, but keep doing it. Now, once you've done that, you will now come with a new picture. And this now will be a picture of him and his favorite toy that he wants to play with. And so you will now have him really look at the picture, and it should be different. He shouldn't be seated the same. For instance, he should maybe on the ground. Very different. Make the picture look quite different. Could be in different size as well, different colors and so on, than the eating picture, okay? So it makes it easier for him to discriminate. So now he will touch that picture or give you the picture, and you will play with him. And you'll do that now for a few days. And once he's mastered that, then you will rotate the two. And this is what's called random rotation, and that's the hardest phase because that's discrimination. So now what you're trying to teach him is that you'll have both pictures, and you'll say, if you touch this one, I'm going to feed you. If you touch this one, I'm going to play with you. And that's a little bit confusing. It is a little bit hard. So there's a lot of different ways to do this. We do it in 7 steps, and that's called discrimination training steps. So what I would suggest is, if you want to learn those steps, you can go to IBT, Institute for Behavioral Training, and look up the skill teaching module, and it will take you through those steps, and it'll tell you exactly how to introduce the first object, what we call the target, which is that, let's say, the first picture, and then you will bring in distractor pictures, and then you'll bring in the second target, and then you rotate the targets. And this sounds like technical lingo, but it's basically what I just told you. And the idea behind it is that you're now teaching your child to touch an icon or to hand you a picture instead of shrieking and screaming in order to get their needs met. And it's always, I'm glad that you figured out that he does it because he either wants to play or he wants some food. And so it's important to figure out, give him a way to express which one it is he wants, and then really reinforce that.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful advice. And then please write us back and let us know how that goes. We'll be very interested to
And
hear.
by the way, you also added, can I ask a nonverbal toddler to ask for attention? Attention is quite different than wanting to play or eat. So, and yes, of course, you can do that as well. And the way you do that is just teach him a third icon, which is a picture of you. And you playing with him, perhaps, or you doing something with him that he likes. And then that's what he will learn to use.
Yeah. And it's so powerful and such a lovely thing when they get the ability to ask for that, and then we reward them by giving it to them. It's so powerful.
Absolutely. And these picture systems or just augmentative devices or nonverbal communication devices and the whole system, we teach our nonverbal kids pretty much everything nonverbally. And it's fabulous. There's no limitation on this. Like one of my kids I often talk about does all sorts of stuff. I mean, and he started out with exactly what I just told you, single pictures, single icons. In fact, when I met him, he had maybe a handful of icons that he wasn't really using, even though they were attached to him. And now, of course, he types full sentences and descriptive sentences on his iPhone. So he doesn't even, he's gone all the way down to just carrying a phone.
And I will tell you, too, that if you start to do picture exchange, someone in your life, well-meaning mother-in-law or someone is going to say, he's never going to talk if you do that.
Right.
And you should be fully armed and ready for that moment, knowing that all the studies show that the exact opposite is true.
That's right.
Kids on the autism spectrum are more likely to speak quicker, not all of them, right? But the ones who are going to speak are more likely to speak quicker if we have functional communication, such as a picture exchange system.
Augmentative stuff, yeah, absolutely.
On board.
Because not only will their frustration level go down right away and they will be more attentive and more willing to learn, but also it's a prompt. I mean, you can also consider these visual stimuli as visual prompts.
Yeah.
So they're prompting the child. You never have to think that a vocalization cannot be accompanied. It certainly can accompany. Instead of giving you a picture, he could also give it to you and say toy or whatever it is, or food. But right now, you're going to teach him one thing at a time, and you're just going to teach him to give you the card. Later on, you can pair it with a verbal.
Yeah, it just makes sense, too. I always think about if aliens came and took me, I don't always think about this, but if aliens came and took me to another planet, and they had a different way, they didn't have fingers, and they had a different way of communicating that I didn't understand, very quickly I would have needs. I would need to use a restroom, I would want something to drink, and I would want something to eat, right? And I would tantrum. I would start screaming and kicking people and biting people if I couldn't get those things and if I couldn't figure out their mode of communication. But I would learn their language much quicker if they gave me some way to communicate with them so that I could get my basic needs met. Right? I would be able to learn because I wouldn't need to use a restroom, wouldn't need something to drink, and wouldn't need something to eat. And that's me. So imagine a 2-year-old, and because this is a new planet to them.
Let's hope that never happens to you.
I'm never going to be, I don't believe in aliens. I'm not somebody who's looking over my shoulder for an alien abduction. That's not who I am.
They're all around you anyway.
I hope not. In any case, let's move on to our next question. Hi, my adult son is very verbal, but sometimes bites his arm when we take him places he doesn't want to go. How can we stop this when sometimes we have to take him with us? And thank you so much for your help.
Yes, so, essentially that is some form of, it's a combination of things. So on the one hand, it could be just frustration, obviously, and then it also becomes a habit. So habits are learned behavior, So let's say, I'm trying to, okay, here's a good example of how this kind of thing. So you have to kind of try to identify what is causing the frustration from these social places. Is there something in particular? And with our kids or adults, they have different things that make them anxious, I think. So let's look at an example of us, what we do, which is very similar. So let's say you go to a party, right? And it's a pretty chaotic, noisy, active party, and everybody's drinking and partying and all this sort of stuff, and that's an environment that may stimulate to you to, for instance, have a cigarette. Okay? And that's not necessarily a good behavior that you want to practice, but generally speaking, being around others who are partying or being in a socially anxiety-provoking environment, you might pull out a cigarette. Okay, now why do you do that? Probably because you are used to doing it, so it becomes kind of a habit in that environment. Other people are drinking and smoking, so you might as well. Secondly, because people exhibit those types of behaviors because of a little bit of social anxiety. It's like something that will calm you down a little bit,
Yeah,
right?
they call it a social lubricant.
Exactly.
Some people use alcohol, other people use a cigarette, and some people use food, and it could be any one of a million things,
Exactly,
right?
exactly. So those are perfect examples. Now, in your son's case, something in that environment is causing him a little bit of discomfort, which could be some form of social anxiety, frustration, or so on. So figure out, first of all, what's common about these environments? Is it actually an environment that is provoking social anxiety, in which case you want to give him something else appropriate to do instead of biting his hand, which has his arm, which has kind of become a habit. And if it's not socially anxiety provoking, maybe it's sensory anxiety provoking. So usually our kids tend to escalate in these types of behaviors when there's a lot of sound, noise, which is really piercing and disturbing. Maybe it is visually overwhelming for him. Maybe you have to really kind of look at the environments and see what they have in common. And I don't know if it's every environment, or maybe it's just environments where you're busy doing something else, and this has become his way of getting your attention back on him. Try to figure that stuff out, because there's always a reason we do these things. It may not be evident because the behavior has really nothing to do with the environment, like why bite his arm versus anything else. But I can tell you that he's trying to communicate something. So try to block it as much as possible. Here's an idea. Try to maybe in the location. And by the way, one of the things our adults tend to do is once they bite a particular location and it scabs over or it toughens, that it becomes the location where they keep going back to. So I would try to maybe wrap that location. There's a lot of different kinds of these, not even with bandage, but they have these socks that you can pull up that are like elastic. And I think if you cover that area, he may gradually stop biting that area, because the sensation, he won't be able to feel it as much. And by doing that, you're blocking it, but you do need to teach him some other way of coping.
Okay. The sock things, I have sleeves that
Yes.
I put on because I'm very sun sensitive and I don't always want to douse myself with sunscreen. And they're just sleeves that you can take on and take off. They're a little bit compression, and they actually help with anxiety too.
Yeah.
Because they're a little bit of, in some people, not in all people.
Yeah, they're kind of fun. Yeah,
yeah.
I like sleeves too. I kind of sometimes get overly anxious because they're so tight.
Yes,
like the
you don't want it
compression.
too tight.
But the feeling of any kind of brace
Yeah.
is sort of a anxiety reducing type of thing. It is a centering thing.
Yeah, they're kind of spandexy, and they come in all different colors. You can get them in all different, and they're literally the sleeves. They don't go up to the shirt so that if it's hot, you can take them off. I have one with butterflies.
Oh, nice.
It's very nice.
Yeah, I had one that looked like tattoos.
Oh,
which is
very
kind of
fun,
cool.
yeah.
But you should also try to keep him engaged. Like if you're preventing the behavior, really try to keep the individual engaged in other things. Shorten the duration of time that you're going to these things. Give him plenty of breaks. It's all the same rules. I mean, if you think about it, it's all the same rules. Reduce the difficulty level is what we're saying, and gradually work up again.
And I wonder too if your adult son is at all interested in the technology end of things, because I find that a lot of my son is very much in this category. A lot of our kids they crest to a certain age, and very similar. It's very neurotypical. I see all kinds of young people, and their social lubricant is their phone.
Right.
That they're busy texting, and that way they don't have to attend to certain things that are making them nervous. That can it's a terrible but good thing. I know that my son can be entertained for hours on end. You could stand him on his head, but if he had a piece of technology, he's fine. I could go shopping, and fly around the world, and he would be happy to have his phone. So something to consider. All right, let's take a short break. We've got a lot of people writing in on Facebook. There's quite the conversation going on Facebook, and I want to have Dr. Graham-Pichet weigh in on it a little bit. So stick with us.
What is autism? What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to just
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism.
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
is a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love. The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these 3 words. There is hope.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're here with Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet in a segment that we call Ask Dr. Doreen. She's a true expert in the field of autism. I mentioned before the break that we've had a lot of people writing in. I didn't get to fill Dr. Graham-Pichet in on all the conversation, but somebody wrote in this morning and said, what do you do when ABA does not seem to be working? What other methods would you recommend? Lots of conversation on Facebook, and at least one person writing it in saying, well, that's a very interesting question, because ABA should work, that it's something that's if it's individualized, that at some point that it should be working. So I'd love to hear from you, a true expert in the field of autism. This parent is saying, what other methods can I use when ABA is not working?
Right. That's a really great question, and it's a fabulous topic for discussion. I'm glad you asked that question. So, to some extent, ABA should always work. Yes, that's true. So, but it doesn't always work, and we'll talk about why and some of the reasons and some alternative things that you can do. But what is ABA? It's not a magic pill. It's a technique that we know for sure works not only with individuals on the ASD spectrum, but all people. Okay, so it just works in general because it clarifies those basic rules that govern behavior, and it allows us to practice in a way that we can change behavior. So ABA is an effective tool. There's no discussion about whether it's effective or not. It's a highly effective tool. There's no question about that. Now, there's a few things about it that need to happen so that it is effective for any given person. One thing is it has to be done enough. So if you do ABA 1 hour a week, or if you do ABA 5 hours a week, it's going to have very little impact on your child because, hey, we've done studies on this. Thousands of studies have been done, and it's very clear that you need to intensify your efforts. It's like learning a musical instrument. Good example. If you do 1 hour of practice with a musical instrument, it'll take you maybe 15 years to learn your first song. Whereas if you do repetitive practice, you're going to learn a lot of different songs and you're going to learn a lot of different instruments over the course of 1 year or 2 years. So the more you put into it, the more you will get out of it. And so intensity is a huge factor. Duration is also an important factor, and that means that you have to do it long enough. So if you do a heavy intensity of something for 1 week and you give it up, the behavior change won't maintain. So it's very important that certain key features are done. There's enough hours being done, and that'll vary based on each individual. There's enough intensity, there's enough duration, so it's being done long enough. The third factor is it needs to be quality ABA. So you can be trained in ABA but not really know what you're doing. The certification, I see too many people out there who have learned ABA kind of in a very theoretical or academic manner and don't really know how to apply it to people. A lot of times, actually, people who come to CARD tell me that's the one thing, they learned from CARD how to apply these things they had studied and learned about. So I really, encourage you to make sure that the quality of the ABA excuse me, that you're receiving is high quality ABA. Like anything else, you can go see a dentist who will mess up your tooth, or you will go see a dentist who will completely take care of it and do a good job. You need to make sure you have a very competent practitioner. So those are the first three things: the duration, the intensity, and the quality of the program that you're receiving. Now, if you have all of that, there's also other factors that might influence whether or not it works. For instance, how healthy is your child? If your child is not sleeping, obviously, no matter what effectiveness that any technique has, they're not going to be focused enough or have the physical capability to learn. So your child needs to be sleeping well. Your child needs to not have pain. So we want to make sure that we're looking at all the other things, like, is my child having pain in their stomach or other areas that might be conflicting? We want to enhance the child's attention, because ABA is, after all, just a teaching technique, right? It's a technique to change behavior. But if the child isn't attending, if the child is extremely, same as being sleepless, or just kind of like hyperactive, or zoned out or lethargic or not attending, or those types of things, it's going to be harder to get through to them. So anything that you can do that will enhance your child's ability to pay attention is going to be effective and helpful and make the effectiveness of the ABA pronounced much more. So make sure your child is sleeping, make sure they don't have any illnesses that you're not able to, that nobody's treating. Make sure they don't have pain, make sure that they are able to attend better. And there's, you can modify that through biochemical means, medications, diets, all that sort of stuff. They help the child stabilize, sit down, and be able to pay attention better. So all of those factors have to be present in order for ABA to work. I won't say that I recommend another type of technique. I don't. Obviously, I've put my entire life into this technique, and I've trained in a lot of other techniques. I am familiar with floor time and how to do that. I am familiar with I trained even in things that I didn't believe in, just so that I could make sure that they're not valid, like facilitated communication. I mean, I studied a lot of other things as well and came to the conclusion that ABA is the one that works in terms of a teaching technique or a behavioral technique. So, but I also know that a lot of my children suddenly wake up and do much, much better if they're on the right diet, if they're sleeping well, if they're able to attend, if they're not in pain. So I'm a very strong believer that you need to make sure that you're treating all of the issues that the child is suffering with, and not just trying to teach them skills. So that all has to come together. And if you do all of that, you will see some response. This is not about the child's capabilities. Children have capabilities. It's just a matter of facilitating it for them.
I just want to add one thing to what you said that I see as a really important component of all that too, that checklist, is that the parents have to learn these techniques and be as involved or more involved in the people who are delivering it.
Right.
And I just want to say how important it is, and this is a subject, I love every single parent that's out there and has a child on the autism spectrum and is trying to figure it out. And I know how hard it is, and it's part of the reason why I am in this chair, the hours that I am to help you to get to the answers that you need. But you have to be aware of who you listen to and when you listen to. There are parents out there who will gleefully say to you, we did ABA and it didn't work. They didn't go through that checklist that Dr. Grandpichet just gave you about, were we making sure that it was quality ABA? And imagine if I were to sit there and to tell you about a world-renowned diet program that people have been losing weight on for years and years and years, and I said to you, I went on that and it didn't work.
Right.
But if you asked me, did I really learn how to eat that way and did I really follow through on it? If I was going to be honest with you, I would say to you, well, clearly not.
Yes.
Right?
That's such a great example, Shannon.
And
right
parents
there.
are out there who didn't give it the college try because maybe they couldn't.
Right.
And I understand that not everyone can, but don't be misled by them into thinking that because they couldn't do it, and no judgments, if you can't do it, you can't do it, but if they couldn't do it, then they don't get to say it didn't work.
Right. Exactly.
That's not fair to any of us.
That's right.
But I see that when parents say, we made this a priority, I learned everything that I needed to learn, I found out what good quality ABA therapy was, I didn't look at my child as the problem, we looked at how we were teaching my child. All of those parents see real progress. Does it look different on each one of those kids? You betcha it does, because they're all individual. But it's so important that we start cutting people off who are putting out bad information and saying, oh, it didn't work. Ask them, can you honestly say that you gave this the full try? I think you'll get a different answer if they're going to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And if they're not being honest with you, go where people will be on. Go to people's houses and see the difference that this therapy makes when you go all in. But you have to go all in.
You have to go all in. Thank you for saying that. I mean, and it's so important to hear those words because, truthfully, the worst thing for us as professionals is to see a parent who gives up when they shouldn't, because so many children benefit. Just think of this. This is not, the next diet. That's a great example. This is something that has been approved by every major source in this company, and there is a reason that it's been approved. It is not easy to get a treatment to a point where you have medical insurance, health insurance paying for it. It is clearly an effective technique, and it just needs to be done right.
And don't listen to people who say, well, because listen, everybody's discussing this on a frequent basis now. ABA has a lot of people that are saying, oh, well, but not for all kids.
Right.
That, well, it worked for them because their child was high functioning, or, oh, it worked for them because their child was more profoundly affected. I find it interesting that they argue on both sides of it. The truth of the matter is that one of the reasons why we talk so much about ABA is that if we give all of our kids an opportunity and we are modifying to them, to their individual, then all of our kids, no matter where they come in on, will make some amount of progress that is meaningful.
That's right.
Meaningful. So don't listen to people who try to tell you, oh no, stop doing that or don't bother doing that. It only works for some kids.
And it has a lot to do also, now that we're discussing it. The content is very, very important. There's no question the techniques are effective, but the content is also is extremely important in how your child does. So, you know, on that discussion of it only works for lower level kids or higher level kids or whatever it is, as long as you know how to, or a professional who's working with your child knows how to modify it and teach, whether it's low level or functioning or high level functioning, it doesn't really matter. The content is quite different. You know, when I teach a child who's, let's say, very young and very affected with autism, I'm going to be teaching them pretty basic stuff. I'm going to be working on getting rid of bad behaviors. I'm going to be working on teaching basic requests, basic labels, very easy stuff. When I'm working with a high-functioning kid who's, you know, 3 years into an ABA program and I'm trying to mainstream him, then I'm working on a whole different set of things, and I'm teaching him how to recognize social cues and how to tell jokes and how to enter a conversation with a group of other children. So the content will vary, and please be aware of that, because one of the things that I often see is parents coming to me from other organizations where the child is very high functioning, yet they've been doing rote, repetitive, early content, and that is also a part of the provider's quality, and you have to make sure that your provider is able to provide you with a very broad curriculum of things and that they're specific to your child. Like, you know, I'm not going to teach your child something they don't need just because I need to do it, you know. So the individualization of the whole program and the fact that it is broad and covers all areas of functioning, extremely important, very, very important as well. And that goes under my heading of quality of program. So yes, these are all the things that you have to pay attention to, but I guarantee you it works. There's no question.
Yeah. I'm smiling because sometimes you guys write in, and you write in just enough so that I can identify if you've written in before, and I get to know all of you, and and this person let us know their name, and this is one of, you know, I say one of my favorite autism moms, and I have so many favorite autism moms, but so loving that she wrote in. I'm not going to post the question because her name is there, but she says, my son will be starting middle school next year. You know, I can relate to this. She says, the many anxieties I have about that is enough to fill the Grand Canyon. Oh, girl, can we talk? But my biggest anxiety about that is gym class, of all things. She says, I'm worried about him remembering to put his belongings in his locker, remember his combination, undressing in front of the other kids, not understanding the rules of the game they play, and getting picked on, and just getting picked on in general about his little quirks. It makes me sick to my stomach to think of him as a victim to these things, or worse, that I just don't even want to go there. He has an IEP and is in a special day right now. I know that he will be in a public middle school that has an AUT program, but I don't know how to feel at ease with all of this.
This is fabulous. And I don't know really the functioning level of your child, but I'll make some suggestions here. One suggestion is you listed some of the very key things, so work on those. Like, these are things that you can actually teach him. For instance, make it very, very easy for him to open his locker lock. Like, you know, one of the things our kids have to do is learn how to do a combination lock. I don't know if that's the case here. Make it really easy for him. Practice it right now. You know, go after school or something and practice the lockers. And teach him each of those skills, changing into PE clothes. Practice the routine. Make it really fluent for him. And you can practice it first at home in a made-up scenario, and then do it at school and make it actually very easy for him. You can use the summer to do that. I don't know when this is next year she's worried about, right? Yeah. So, you know, practice each of those steps individually and make them strong. But then in addition to that, so this is something to consider, and I don't know, but it's something depending on the class and the school. You might talk to the school and the teacher if you think this is something that you'd like to do. And again, it depends on the functioning of your child, because sometimes when our kids are, you know, there's two sides to this. We don't want to stigmatize our children and necessarily label them when we don't have to. But sometimes there's a benefit to that, and the benefit is that other children can be brought on board to be your allies before they take a bullying type position. They're children as well, and they can be manipulated and their behaviors can be modified. So one suggestion, and some parents have done this and it has worked rather well, is with, of course, the school support and the teacher support, you actually bring together children, the children who will be in the classroom. You perhaps can have access to them even in the summer, and form a team called, Friends of whatever your child's name is, and have a few allies in the classroom whose job it is to make sure he is not bullied. And I guarantee you, no matter the size of the classroom or the school, or if it's public, private, whatever it is, there's going to be a few kids who are strongly against bullying and who are already the type of children who will be your allies. And it's a matter of making it a public cause and making sure that the whole classroom knows that you are aware of what could happen, and that they should instead of making fun, there are ways for them to help. This is something really important, I think, with bullying. People make fun of and bully when they don't know what else to do. And I think if other children in the classroom know a little bit more about autism. There was a group of moms in Arizona who used to do this, and I loved their program. They would go to school by school and teach the school what autism is all about. Mm-hmm. I really, really like that concept, and I would love to help somehow grow that in the country. But I think that if you had the ability to go in and actually explain how your child sees the world, autism doesn't mean that you're dumb or retarded. It means that your brain works differently. Wasn't there recently a research project that came out that showed that, this was like last week, I think, that showed individuals with autism have the same genetic composition as high IQ individuals?
Yes, exactly.
Which is kind of an interesting study, and I love those studies because our kids can certainly use whatever resources we can give them, so that people don't look at them in sort of he's going to be weird in our classroom or something, but rather they start to look at our kids more like, the future Bill Gates of the world, the future Einsteins of the world. And you need to help the other children learn that. You need to help the people in the school see autism as that and understand that your child has gifts and has a lot to offer, and that it is their job, it is their responsibility to society to help your child rather than hinder him in any way. And I think so, put some effort into that, because you'll be surprised that there are some pretty cool kids out there who will be very supportive of this cause.
Yeah, I've been asked to speak week after next at a school, get the school ready for World Autism Awareness Day.
Wonderful.
And if you already know what your junior high is going to be, it might be that you could go in this month during April to give a talk. And I know this mom is very well spoken. It's to maybe grease that.
That's fantastic.
To start the process of the school knowing it. I love your idea, because I'm going to institute that for Jem as well. And I thank you for writing in about this, because while I have anxieties about everything having to do with junior high, it had not occurred to me to have anxiety about this particular area, right?
No,
now it has occurred to me, but I have tools, I have things to work on. I hadn't thought about, the whole idea of the whole undressing and locker.
It is kind of a different thing for the kids. I remember with my kids when they entered middle school, it was new, you know, and it was like, I need PE clothes now and all this sort of stuff. So it is kind of a different experience, and you just need to make the child comfortable with it.
Well, but I applaud you for writing in and putting that on my radar. And thank you so much for doing that. I think our kids are going to do that much better because of it. And thank you so much for that wonderful advice.
It's always a pleasure.
We're out of time, unfortunately. We didn't get through nearly half of our questions, but we'll keep plugging away at them. So excited that we have another show before we get to April Autism Awareness Month. So thank you for being here. We're going to take a break, and we're going to look at the A Word, which is an ongoing documentary being made by the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, following a little boy, Jack Riley, who we get to see into his home to see what that early intensive quality ABA program looks like, what it's like for the little boy, what it's like for the therapist, what it's like for the family, because it is a bit of an adjustment. At this point in the series, they've just started with therapy and they're starting to see the reality of what it's like having a bunch of people in your home helping you on a regular basis. It's a wonderful thing, but it's an adjustment. So take a look at that. When we come back, Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson will join me for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. And our special guest again today is Vince Redmond, a licensed marriage and family therapist, and he is going to be talking with us about anxiety and autism from a slightly different perspective. We're going to talk about how our anxiety as parents affects our kids and what we can do about it. So all of that and more after the A word.
I just wanted to ask you how you're adjusting with all these people coming in and out of the home.
You know, half of me is used to it. Half of me is no longer freaking out about how clean my house is, clearly. The other half of me is still really overwhelmed. And, you know, if there's talk of one more thing that we add to our list for that week, sort of freaks me out, at least initially.
Well, it's easier now. It was very strange the first week. He's making progress. It's sort of relentless. When you think you have a moment to relax, wait a minute, 9:30, so-and-so is showing up. But it's just an adjustment. It's not overwhelming necessarily. There are times where you just need an hour and it's not coming. But we've developed a fondness for all you guys, so that makes it easier. And he's making progress, so who really cares how inconvenient it is?
What color?
You're funny.
I like Spider-Man.
You're funny. You were such a climber.
Hey! She's not a jungle gym.
You're funny.
Hey.
You're funny. You're funny. Go. Hey, you wanted to go color. Yeah, go color.
Yeah, come here.
Color.
I have colors for you. Here. Do you want green or orange? Which one's orange? Green or orange? Orange, yeah. Good job.
I see changes in him every day. Today we went to OT and just watching him climb up a rope. And he got to the top and he was on a ledge and she had to show him how to turn over on his belly to climb back down. And he did it again and he got to the top and he remembered. He knew to turn on his belly and do it. So just watching how he's soaking up stuff and being able to adapt it so quickly is pretty impressive. Now, if only that would work with the eating. That's probably still our biggest challenge is eating.
Yeah, eating's it's a task. The therapist came out because he needed to eat, and it probably took him 10 minutes to really take his first bite. But what he'll eat and how he'll eat and when he'll eat are very challenging stuff.
I think the goal is to develop the relationships with the girls first and to be more compliant on behaviors that don't involve food or eating. He gets really worked up when new foods are introduced to him. It's a good 10, 12 minutes before he'll even consider eating anything else. So we have to get past that and probably introduce it to him a lot and let him play with it more and just get that fear or anxiety out of him. But it's going to be a slow process, I think.
He's making something very intricate. And I'm surprised. I was talking to Susanna because he's so into textures and how things feel, and I was surprised that he even wanted to touch it.
We had peaches in front of him today with applesauce and tried to make it fun to run the trains through, and he was not happy about the whole thing.
Can we squish it?
Are you all done with the Play-Doh?
Yeah, let's go.
All done.
Clean up. Thank you. Good job.
Uh-oh, you don't want to be done yet.
We can play with it later, Jack Riley. We're done for now, okay?
You want to eat?
Are you hungry?
Are you hungry? You want lunch?
Do you want to watch Pocoyo with lunch? Pocoyo? Oh, Jack.
How has it been like just adjusting to there's days when he's having therapy and he's having difficulty, he's crying and
Those are hard on us because I think we're both overly sensitive anyway, and he's your son. Those days haven't been that many where he's like emotionally drained or anything. I think he's made the adjustment maybe better than we have.
Thursday, I remember sitting in my office and hearing him cry pretty hard, and I had to call a girlfriend. Mike was gone, so I had to call a girlfriend, and I was pretty close to tears. And she talked me off the ledge, which was a good thing. But since then, it's been easier to hear him. I haven't heard it as bad, or it hasn't felt as bad. but I know it's good for him, and I know that he's being asked to do things that he's not used to being asked to do. So there's nothing wrong with that.
This one. What color? Green. Green. Yeah.
Last night there were bubbles on a page, and not only did he say bubble and pointed at all the bubbles, but then he decided to pop the bubbles and started saying pop. And so he's using the words right, and that book, I think we went through every page and he found something on every page that he knew the word for.
Get him. Pop.
Nothing is easy for him anymore, even with us. I think if he wants to do anything or if he wants to try anything, he has to ask us for it or say the color or do something. So I think we learned that from ABA.
Pocoyo or Baby Babble?
Babble. Good choice.
Baby Babble.
Baby Babble. That's good talking.
Bubbles.
Bubble.
Pop. If he's watching a video with you, he turns and make sure you get. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? So he's fully engages you to make sure you're paying attention, and that's great because I like when he looks at my eyes.
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod. Thrilled to be here with you, my
Hi.
friend. I know you've been through an incredible week, but you just shared good news that
Yes.
your husband's coming home.
He's coming home today from the hospital. He's been there since last Friday, had kidney infection and had some surgery yesterday, but he's coming home, so we're happy.
That's a good thing.
Good thing.
All to the good news.
Yeah.
Thrilled. And I promised that we're going to give a little bit of an update on the run.
Yeah.
And just want to remind everybody that Nancy's out there raising money for a run even when her husband is in the hospital. So anything you can do to help her to raise money for these military families for the Act Today for Military Family Run. What are you, 10 days away from?
Well, it's a week from Saturday.
Yeah, so it's coming up. But Nancy could use some help. I said to them, Wyatt's Warriors is a team that's there. Jem's Awesome Rama team.
Awesome Rama team.
And you could start your own team.
That's right. You can go on right there, Act Today for Military Families, Kintera.org. And you can start your own team. You can sign up. You can make a donation. You contribute to Jem's team or Wyatt's team.
Yes.
And
we should do a whole Team Wyatt, Team Jem thing, and you hashtag, which team are you going to be on?
Okay.
Except that it seems competitive. We want you to support everybody.
We just don't care who you support as long as you support.
It doesn't matter. It all goes to the same place.
This is, as I say, I don't have a dog in this fight except for the families.
Yes, exactly.
And we're going to read a letter a little later on that I got from a mom, and I don't know if I can get through it. You might have to read it.
All right, I'll step in and save you with a tissue and
because
help.
it's a military family that needs some help, and our grant cycle because we parse out the money over the year. We have $25,000 to give out, and somebody wrote on Facebook, "I can't believe you only have $25,000 in funds to give out." And I wanted to write back, well, why can't you believe it? Where do you think we get the money from? We get the money from private donations and fundraising.
And do they understand that that's for this quarter? That's not
Well,
the
I said
entire
that's for this
year.
quarter, but when she said, I can't believe it, I felt like saying, well, why can't you believe it?
Yeah, what have you done?
Yeah, exactly.
How much have you donated?
Yeah.
What exactly have you
so
done?
I just wanted to, we'll read it later, but, we can't fully grant this family what they need, and that just breaks my heart, because when you read what this mom has to say, I think there won't be a dry eye in your house. So
Absolutely devastating. But hey, we've got some news to share with you. I don't know if you all saw this, but I thought it was just the coolest thing in the world. A gentleman, Ned Sahin, has a wonderful new invention involving Google Glass, And the headline was, can an app for Google Glass offer a path out of autism? This is a company called Brain Power. We've reached out to them. We are going to have somebody from Brainpower, Ned or somebody on the show.
Great.
We hope in April. But, I love when things make sense.
Yes.
And as I understand it, this particular app, if you've all seen the Google Glasses and you put them on and it can flash things.
I haven't seen them yet, but it flashes in front of your eyes.
Yes. Dr. Grandpichet had an opportunity to wear one before it actually came out. So it's so high tech. It's science fiction, but you can be looking at somebody through a pair of glasses that are a little bit futuristic looking, and you can be seeing things on the screen that they're not seeing. So you can be watching a music video while you're being interviewed for a job.
Okay.
Right?
Might be a little distracting.
Right. It could potentially be a little distracting, but he has taken this technology and said, well, we know that individuals with autism, for instance, don't find it as reinforcing as the rest of us do to look somebody in the eyes.
Well, they have a extreme dislike for looking people in the
eyes. It's not the thing that, I look you in the eyes and I go, look at how beautiful Nancy is, and I just feel love for you, right? But for our kids, it's uncomfortable.
Right.
So this technology, for instance, this is just one of the areas that it could help. They take something that the kids like maybe they're into Angry Birds or Star Wars or something like that, and they hook up the glasses so that when they make eye contact, it superimposes an image of the thing that they like, so they get another kind of reward other than the glasses. Because we know that through classic conditioning, when you pair two things together, something that's reinforcing with something that isn't reinforcing, over time you can fade that thing and it will transfer to the thing that you wanted it to transfer.
Yes.
So what a great way of teaching things that they can bring things, a lot of our kids are visual, they can bring visual things up. Think about this in terms of for our kids who have trouble focusing in a classroom, and we have a checklist next to them or a timer that says make sure you're tuning into the teacher. But what if they were wearing a pair of glasses that every time they tune into the teacher, they get to see something that they enjoy?
Right.
What kind of a difference can it make?
And did I see that Martha Herbert was involved with this?
Very likely. I don't know that I read that part of it.
I saw that, and now I'm looking here, and I can't find it.
And of course, we've had Martha Herbert before on the show, an amazing
Look,
field.
There's a quote here from Dr. Herbert. What is cutting edge about this tool is that it gives the person immediate, direct feedback. Also, you can track progress with real data that's easy to collect, said Martha Herbert, a pediatric neurologist and researcher at Mass General, who will direct the upcoming clinical trial of the device at Harvard Medical School next month. Herbert hopes the data collected from the Google Glass experiment will yield new insights into the complex neurological condition. So, did you know that back in January, Google said it was not going to produce the glass prototype as it rethinks the device? It's only available to certified partners right now. I didn't know if you were aware of that. But they will be working with this. So it's Dr. Herbert and Saheen, and I'm just curious to see when this is going to be available. I guess once we get the results of the study, they'll be figuring that out.
They do say on their website, if you'd like to have information, if you'd like to be notified as they're looking for people to research on it, there's a place where you can click to be able to tell them, which I think is awesome. And
cool. And they had an open house, Brainpower did, and about a dozen children were able to try Google Glass and Saheen's software. And a mom, a special education teacher, and her 11-year-old son, Sean, who has autism, after he tried it, said to her, "They're awesome. I think these glasses make me smarter." And then he jumped up, arms outreach, and told her, "I think I am breaking out of an autism prison."
Pretty remarkable. I just think it makes great sense.
I want it. I'm ready.
I think it's a very cool
Sign
thing.
me
My
up.
kid would be all about it.
Yeah. Wyatt would too.
And it just makes good sense.
Okay. Well, let's hope it becomes available.
Okay, blood test shows promise for guiding autism diagnosis and treatment. There's a new test that is associated with gene expression patterns affecting the immune system and proteins involved in brain development. Now, this is a subject that we talk quite a bit about, this whole idea of how does protein interact with our immune system. As you look at all, it's like putting the pieces together, isn't it, Nancy?
Yes.
So in any case, this is a new blood test. test that hopes that it can track which genes and certain patterns that will signal that something is going on in the brain so that they might be able to get there earlier.
Right.
We're always looking for those things that can identify, since the way that autism is diagnosed currently is this very subjective set of criteria, and honestly, you know, they keep trying to perfect it to get to it earlier and earlier, but it's hard to be able to judge whether a 12-month-old child is actually able to do things. So we love the idea of having a genetic marker showing us so that we could get in there before 12 months and intervene with a child, whether it's dietarily, with medication, or with therapy.
Right, and I liked what Paul Wang, who's Autism Speaks head of medical research, said. These findings reinforce the theory that inflammatory and immune pathways are involved in autism's development alongside disturbances in protein synthesis. So once again, inflammatory and immune pathway issues, which is what a lot of the big biomed doctors have been telling us for years.
Right.
And a lot of what autism moms who describe and individuals that believe their children that this is a total body disorder that has a lot to do with inflammation have believed for a long time.
And for people who all along the way, just yesterday somebody was saying to me, well, haven't they absolutely proven without a shadow of a doubt that that gluten-free, casein-free thing has nothing to do with?
So not true.
And I said, no, you know, for a lot of our kids, it absolutely does have something to do. That's what we're talking about, the proteins.
Right.
Gluten and casein are proteins.
Yes.
And our kids' inability to be able to break them down in any other way than changing them into an opiate, not all of our kids, but for some of our kids, it makes a huge difference for them to go on a gluten-free, casein-free
such as our two
diet.
kids.
Yes, for instance, as a path. In any case, do you want to read your letter now?
I would prefer
or do you
to
want...
do this when we talk about the run,
All right,
because I just feel like it just gives you an idea of what some of our military families go through. And you know, I have had comments like, well, why military families? And it really has so much to do with the fact that there's so much stress on the military family in general, with a parent deployed oftentimes or in training exercises, moving every 2 years. And the recent studies from the Department of Defense are not out yet, but several years ago, autism in the military family was at a higher rate, and we still expect that to be true when we get those new numbers. So that is why it's one of our programs at Act Today. A lot of times people will say, oh, well, Act Today raises money for military families with autism. That's not all we do. That's a very small part of what we do. We raise money for all children for treatment grants for autism. So I just want to clarify that, and I'll read this letter later because I do have some mascara on and it might be down my face.
There we go. And in the meantime, we're gonna take a break, and when we come back, we're gonna be joined by Vince Redmond, licensed and marriage family therapist, who joins us on a monthly basis here. Vince and I were in a conversation a couple of weeks ago where we started talking about what kinds of, you know, Vince is very proactive at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, finding services to match up with families to help them to get everything done that they need to do. He's always about that, and we were brainstorming about what else do families need, and we started talking about anxiety in particular in the teenage years. And Vince said, well, you know, it's my experience that a lot of autism parents have problems with anxiety. And I said, really, it's my experience too. And we had a little laugh about that. But and he started talking about a subject that really, I just went, Vince, we have to talk about this, about what our anxiety, how that influences our children.
Yeah.
And what we can do about it, and how we need to grow aware of what that is.
Yeah, it's hard because it's a balance.
So
There's a lot of
hard.
anxiety in my house right now.
Oh.
And, you know, I always wonder what to share with Wyatt, what not to share, and he's aware things are going on.
But it's amazing what they pick up. And Vince has some strategies to help us with our anxiety, but also to help us to be aware of how it affects our kids and how we can mitigate that.
Okay,
So
very
I think that's
timely today, Vince.
Yes, isn't
Okay.
it? All right, so we're going to take a break and be back with Vince Redmond. Stick with us.
When you find out you're having a boy, you always think like, oh, he's going to play football, he's going to do this and that. And then when he's diagnosed, all those things get washed away.
It's like that piece that's always in the back of your mind, you know, where is he, what is he doing? Is he safe?
We really didn't know what we were dealing with. I wish that they could have directed me a little bit more and provided me some information.
I was a young mom. I didn't know what it was like to raise a boy, despite a boy with autism.
Hundreds of thousands of families are not getting the help they need for their children with autism all around the country. ACT Today is determined to bridge the gap. These families really have to go through a lot to get a grant. The application process isn't easy. The records, the diagnosis proof, they're really battling for their kids. So when we can give them a grant, it is so wonderful to see that they succeed in getting that help for their children. Our founder, Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet, is an amazing woman, and she is one of the world's foremost authority on behavior of children with autism. She's extremely knowledgeable, and she oversees every single grant we give. She is part of that process. People may think of autism care and treatment as simply schooling or therapy, but we provide important safety supports, things like fencing, for example. The whole family's living in fear of that child running out into traffic. I recently delivered an iPad to a little boy with some of the apps that are out there for children with autism. Miracles happen.
I got the iPad from ACT.
From ACT,
What
yeah.
did it say? Can you repeat that, Dustin?
I got the iPad from ACT.
We have helped so many military families, and when I think of these brave families that are fighting two battles, one to protect our country and one for the right treatment and care for their children, it breaks my heart, and I think we have to do more as a nation to help them.
There's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't think about it. Some people say, oh, he's normal. You don't see the battles that I see every single day. My husband does have to deploy, and when they get on that bus, that might be the last time that my kids ever see them.
So I called, and they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above. I was just like speechless. I just started to cry because, without it, we would have been lost.
The ACT grant was a total miracle. Without that, we wouldn't be able to receive the service dog. So we're so appreciative what they've done for us as a family.
Recently, ACT Today funded a program for military children with autism in San Diego, the Inclusion Films program, which is run by Joey Travolta, and teaches kids on the autism spectrum literal filmmaking skills. They learn how to make a movie.
Are we ready? There you go, got it. Okay. Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp, and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get two kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
It's so fulfilling when I get letters. One stands out for me, a boy who was 14 with Asperger's, and we gave him a grant to go to a drama camp. He wrote to us and said, "Dear ACT Today, thank you for letting me belong for the first time in my life." These kids are remarkable. We underestimate them. They're so knowledgeable, they're so capable, and we can change the life of a family, which means changing the life of a community.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. Nancy and I are thrilled right now because we're joined by our regular guest, Vince Redman, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist with the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. But on top of that, Vince has another set of credentials that make him very near and dear to us. He is an individual who has worked with individuals on the autism spectrum for more than 20 years in many different capacities, even before he became a licensed marriage and family therapist. So he understands the interventions that we're trying to do in our homes. He understands why we're trying to do it and can be very helpful from that end while looking at some of the family dynamics. So Vince, we love you.
Aw, thank you. Love you guys too.
And we're thrilled that once a month we get an opportunity to pick your brain and talk to you about some things. Now, you and I were in a conversation about a week ago talking about some of the wonderful things that you're doing at CARD, some of the programs that you've been able to institute for families to help them in this journey to be a whole family. And we got to talking about anxiety. And we were talking about anxiety for our teenagers in particular, but then you brought up something that I thought was pivotal about the anxiety that parents go through themselves. And you used the word barometer, that the kids tend to be a barometer for how we're feeling. Sometimes we realize that, and sometimes we don't realize how much they're picking up on. So we agreed that we were going to talk about that, but even before we talk about that, Nancy's had a pretty stressful week in her household, and she's got some questions for you about when the whole family's going through stress, about what kinds of things you do. So hit it, Nancy.
Okay. I'm glad to have this time with you, Vince. As many families are in the situation, there's not just a child with autism, but there's maybe another condition in the family, either with the parent or another sibling. And maybe that the other sibling has special needs or health needs, or the parent does. In my case, my husband has been battling cancer for a number of years and has some side effects from that. And is frequently hospitalized and has to undergo about 4 operations a year. Friday, Wyatt and I had to take him to the emergency room. We were there for about 4 hours, which was not easy for Wyatt. Right. And then when we got home, he was very stressed out, had a little mini breakdown at 1 in the morning, got him into bed. But during this time, what I notice is his self-stimulatory behaviors way go up, okay? Sure. So in this case, he likes to splash water, which we know is Wyatt's stem. So he goes out by the pool and he splashes, and he also throws the water in his mouth at times. So we've been limiting him to that time while we are in this stressful situation where his father is in the hospital. Do I stick to that hardcore plan of 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the afternoon, 10 minutes at night, which when I call him in after those 10 minutes, there's a much more severe reaction? Or do I allow him a little leeway?
Kind of a combination of both, right? I think really knowing that there's a lot of extra stress going on in your understandable stress, right? This is an internal stress due to something that we're just guessing at. This is obviously he's stressed because he's been in the hospital. He sees his dad's not coming home, those types of things. What I would recommend, or looking at a situation like that, is continuing to have the structured time where he can splash, but maybe add a couple more times in there so that it's still structured, it's still within a time frame, it's still something that he can get an appropriate release by doing something that calms him, something that he uses as kind of an emotional stabilizer, but give him maybe a couple more times he can do it. So instead of the one time in the morning and the one time at night, maybe add 1 time in the morning, 1 time in the afternoon, 1 time at night, or maybe 2 times in the afternoon, but keeping it on a schedule so that it's easier to systematically back out as soon as his anxiety goes down.
Great. And would you recommend adding a few more reinforcers during this time?
Absolutely. I think that's a really good idea. I think a lot of times when the anxieties are going up, again, especially for things that we understand, rightfully so, that his anxiety is going up, I think making sure that we overemphasize the positive, either it be reinforcement, it be time together, it be, verbal praise, all the types of reinforcement that are going to help the child. We want to make sure that we're increasing it. We want to make sure that we're noticing it more, right? We as adults are going to be really focused on the situation at hand as well. And we want to make sure that we make a concentrated effort to make sure that there's, an amply rich environment for our child so that it does help, keep some of those anxieties under wrap.
Great. So my suggestion, which kind of I think goes hand in hand, but I'd love your opinion, Vince. I had said to give him a little bit more time, but give him the ability to earn it. Mm-hmm. I was at her house on Saturday, and they were getting ready to go to karate, and she said, I just, it's going to be so hard for me. And I said, man, you've got enough going on. If it were me, I would say to him, hey, would you like some more time to splash today? I'll tell you what, if you do a really good job at karate, then I'm going to give you 10 additional minutes when you get home from karate. Okay. And you said to me, but he's already good at karate. And I said, so much the better. Then it's not going to be hard for him to earn it.
Okay.
But that I never give away anything for free.
I got it.
So does that just add pressure if we're having him earn it?
And that's it. I mean, we have to look at how are we using it. Are we using it as a way of releasing his frustration and his anxiety, or are we using it as an opportunity to reinforce other behaviors? Sometimes it could be both. Sometimes we have to choose one or the other. That's one of the situations where we have to choose our battles. Is it something where he needs to have more access to this type of behavior because it helps release that anxiety, it helps release his frustration because he can't really understand the emotions or express the emotions of what's going on with his sadness or his fear or his concern for dad. Okay. So by putting that even on a bigger contingency, we might actually have the behaviors worsen and have a bigger blow up. Okay. However, if it's something like you were saying, where we can pair it with an already very established, very well structured behavior that he already does, say in karate, taekwondo, he already does that, then it's twofold. We're reinforcing all his good behaviors, but we're also giving him that opportunity to release some of his frustration. So your suggestion is great, but I think it also is situational depending on where the anxiety is and what's the cause of it.
Right. Great. All right. Wonderful.
Okay, great. Thanks for those tips.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the anxiety that Nancy's going through. And sure. I always have anxiety, I live in that neighborhood.
Right.
And I think that every autism parent does.
I do too. I don't think this is, every autism parent I speak to has issues with this.
And sometimes it's just the anxiety of all the different things that life brings, and then on
As
top
I always
of
say,
it,
life keeps going on,
right.
autism or not, right?
And the bills still have to get paid, and stuff happens, and people get sick, and cars break down.
Yeah.
But I do think that I hear from a lot of autism parents too that the anxiety can be a little bit more than your general anxiety. That I was diagnosed at one point with an anxiety disorder,
and I am,
and and I know a lot of autism parents
this was pre-autism
who will tell you that they're OCD. Some of them are on medication. I think as a rule, we tend to be people who are prone to that, if not already are there. And yet I know over the years that sometimes I have seen my coping mechanisms affect my child. I watched my child the other day in a stressful situation, and afterwards he sat down and he was trying to do his breathing, and he's 11, and he sat down to take his pulse, because I've been having a lot of, with my doctor, working with my doctor, my cardiologist, I've got a heart arrhythmia, and I tend to do that to see what's going on. And I thought, oh, that's horrible. Look what I've taught my child. And over the years, I've seen those kinds of things. What can we be doing, Vince, so that we're dealing with our own anxiety but not teaching our kids how to grow up to be anxious adults?
And I think you hit the nail on the head on that one, is that oftentimes the kids are going to model the way we deal with our stress, the way we deal with our anxiety, right? Either it be yelling, exploding, retreating, going quiet.
We hope they're not going to get a glass of wine.
Right. No, hopefully not. Right. Right. Yes. Self-medicating.
That would be modeling my behavior.
But the idea is like you were saying, is showing him good coping strategies by modeling it for him. When we get stressed, we do the same thing. We take deep breaths. We go into another room for a minute. Say, I need to have some time just to think this out. And going in another room, giving yourself an opportunity to de-escalate from a situation. Being able to continue to grow healthy habits at the home. Either exercise, good diets. Things that contribute to increased anxiety and increased stress, so that when stressful situations are going to come up on a daily basis, sometimes severe, sometimes minor, that the way we deal with them, not only the way we model it for our kids, but the way we also teach it and live around it is going to formulate a lot of good behaviors for them as well.
Well, let me ask a question then about if a parent is going through a lot of anxiety and they're having an issue coping with their own anxiety. How do they deal with that while at the same time keeping an eye on their child? Because half the time it's not like we're parents that can just, let our child go off down the street for a play date. They're usually with us. How can we deal with our own anxiety while continuing to monitor our children? I don't know if that's a question that you could break down.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is being able to know our boundaries, know our limits, right? As soon as we know we're not managing the stress or anxiety, appropriately or at least efficiently, we need to seek out help. We need to seek out consultations from friends or family members or, parent support groups, things like that. And if we feel that's not helping, then we need to, I would suggest reaching out to more professional counseling, more professional help that will help guide you to those appropriate, stress reducers, emotional stabilizers, strategies and techniques, behavior interventions that we as families and we as parents can learn that can help us maintain our anxiety. Because again, anxiety, trickles down from the top. It goes from the top down to the bottom. So the way we're able to monitor it, the way we're able to stabilize it, and the way we're able to change it is going to, transcend into the family as long as we have the appropriate skills and strategies to do so.
I think it's so, I remember the first time I had an opportunity to interview Temple Grandin. When we were all done, she said to me, okay, you're an autism parent. I want to talk to you about a program that my mother and I are working on. We have identified that one of the biggest problems that autism families are having is that they don't have enough opportunity to be away from their child and know that their child is in good care.
Definitely.
And I know that that's something that, you're working on, Vince, that you've instituted a program at a lot of the CARD facilities where there's at least one night a month where parents can drop their kids off and go
the Friday fun nights
and be somewhere else, or have a date night, or just go get a massage, or just sit in their car and listen to music and know that their child is with someone who cares. IBT has a new babysitter program that they're to train babysitters, but I think that that's part and parcel is that we have to recognize as autism parents before we get to the critical meltdown that we have to ask for help beforehand, because it takes a while to get that component on board. Finding respite is almost as stressful as just staying with your child.
Yes.
But one of the things that we did over the weekend is that you have somebody that you trust with your child, and they came to our house to have a play date.
Yeah.
Right.
But you said to me, I said, what can I do? And you said, this is what you can do.
Because that's what having Wyatt, knowing that he's at a home where you understand autism,
right,
and he's got somebody there that can facilitate play with Jem.
But I think that was key, that you said, this is what you can do to help.
And you know what? If I hadn't had Sunday with Wyatt up there at your house, I would be on the floor right now.
Well, but you asked before you got to that point, and that we all need to take a page out of that book, Nancy, and ask for help before we're at critical mass. I don't know about everybody else, and I'm going to let you talk, Vince, but I wait until I'm already on the floor, and then I have to take help. But we need to start to realize as adults that we got to ask for the help before that. Go ahead, Vince.
Right, and think about it. What is the first thing your doctor says about anything? Right?
Take your oxygen first.
Yeah.
Preventative.
Make sure that we're aware of what's going on around, make sure we're aware of our stresses, and make sure we seek help, seek advice, seek guidance before it becomes a problem, before we have an ailment, right? I couldn't have capsulized it any better. We need to take care of ourselves in efforts to not only keep our anxieties down, but also to maintain, healthy strategies, healthy behaviors, and, the energy, the resources, and the fortitude that we need as parents to raise our kids and to give them that special need, that special help that they need. And if we break down, it goes that trickle down effect. It will trickle down, and our kids will be affected by it at some point.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of doctors say lower your stress, but when you say, I had this conversation 2 weeks ago with my doctor. She said, you need to lower your stress, and I said, well, draw me a picture of what that looks like and how I do that.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
And then they pull out a pad and they want to prescribe, medication that numbs you out. You might as well be in the bottle of wine.
Right. So let's just talk about a few things that parents can do, because Vince, one of the things that I tend to do when I'm under severe stress, like I have been, this last week is some of the self-care things go out the window because I think I don't have time for them. I got to go to the grocery store. I got to cook the dinner. I got to race to work. I'm at work. I've got to put in the full day at work. Then I got to figure out picking him up from school, coming back, maybe when the therapist is with him, I can get a little more work done. Then after he goes to bed, I can be up till 1 a.m. getting more work done. What is hard to accept, I think, for parents is putting themselves first in the time they can. For example, when I let him off at school, go for that walk with the dogs.
Right.
Try to go to the yoga class that doesn't cost much, right? Because if we don't do those things, we're going to be the ones that are worse for the wear, right? So what are some of the things simple things, not expensive, what are some simple things that a parent can do while they have some free time, maybe while their child is at school, for example?
Sleep.
Sleep?
Love it.
Good one?
Honestly, I mean,
Sleep
a lot
is
of times
amazing.
you've even said you're up till 1. You're up to, you're going to bed at 1, getting up at 6. I mean, you're not getting enough sleep. Sleep's our number 1 fuel source, right? We have to be able to get sleep. So don't be, and I think this is something that's a little bit of a misnomer with a lot of our families is that they don't have, if they have the time, it should be filled with something else to do. Yeah. Take a 20-minute nap, take a power nap, get that energy, get that rest that your body needs, right? Number 2, like you were saying, take those quick walks, go around the block a couple times, even if it's just around the block once. That is better than not. Right? It's giving yourself a time to let your mind kind of wander, let your mind organize, let your mind come up with different priorities of things that need to be done. But also in the same way, you're getting a lot of oxygen, you're getting a lot of air, and you're exercising your muscles. And then slowly you can, you realize, oh, maybe I could do 2 laps or I can do 3 laps. It doesn't take that much time, right? One of the biggest things that we sometimes oversee is eating healthy, making sure we're eating, period.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have that
I'm sure we've gone.
I have the other problem.
Yeah.
I eat healthy, and I make sure I eat. I just have to. I have to watch the quantity thing because that's where, when I feel anxiety, I go directly and open a refrigerator door and stand there and look.
Mine is that I'll be so exhausted that I'll get the grande latte in the morning and I won't eat anything until 3 o'clock. So.
Right. The biggest thing is know our faults, right? Or know our
go-tos.
Tendencies. Yeah. I think the biggest thing is we know our tendencies. We can prevent plans around them, right? Mine is very similar. Is if it takes more than 5 minutes to make, it takes too much time. Okay. Right. So what can we do for that? What can we do for strategies with families that don't have a lot of time to be able to prepare themselves meals and they don't want to go out to fast food all the time, right?
Can I just say, asking that one of the easiest things people can do for an autism family because they maybe don't feel okay about taking the child and looking after the child, never be afraid to ask for somebody to cook for you.
Yeah.
If you are stressed, I had a neighbor deliver a roast chicken last night. Somebody's bringing chicken matzo ball soup today for when my husband comes home from the hospital. Ask people to cook for you because I don't know, when you're under stress, it seems like that's one of the last things to go or ask them to run to the grocery store for you. That gives you some free time, right?
Those are great things. I should have done that for you.
Absolutely.
You did enough.
It's one of those things, Nance. Just like you were saying, it's the reaching out. I think sometimes that's the hardest step.
Mm-hmm. No man is an island.
In asking, especially for a lot of our families that feel very inclusive, very personal, very private, it's hard for them to reach out to family members or friends to help support, to help ask. Again, I think we live in a community that's a lot more gracious, a lot more helping, a lot more altruistic than we give it credit for. But we need to reach out for it. We need to ask for it. We need to ask for that help, and it's right there waiting for you.
And not only that, I will say this because I had this conversation with somebody this morning that has not been asking for help. And I said, you're leaving out the part where helping you makes us feel good.
Oh, it does.
I said, they were needing a trip to go to get radiation, and I said, please let my husband take you. That would make my husband feel great about himself. Why are you cutting him out of this opportunity where he could feel good about himself?
Right. We always
Why
feel
are you being
guilty.
so selfish?
We feel guilty asking, and if somebody offers, that means they want to help, right?
Yes. So don't close people away from that feel good. You know how good you feel when you do something for somebody else. Think of it as a favor you're doing for them by telling them what they could do to help you.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, and that's a great suggestion. And the other thing is sometimes we don't have, it's best not to ask. It's to say, especially of families that are in great needs, that are under great stress or under great, circumstances, just to say, I'm going to take you to the doctor tomorrow. What time do I need to pick you up?
Yeah.
It's not an option.
Just say, I'm doing
taking
this.
you.
That's a great idea.
Well, I'm going to tell on us a little bit because, on Friday night when you texted me and you told me that you were at the emergency room with Reed and with Wyatt, and what was the first thing that I texted you back?
You said, I will come pick up Wyatt right now.
And she was like, no, let's wait and see what happens. And I said, the whole next day, I was like, I should have just listened to my instinct. I should have just gotten in the car and driven that down there and not asked you. I just should have said, I'm coming. I will be there. I'm taking Wyatt home. You stay there with Reed.
Well, now I know you're serious, and I know you mean it. And
because you just met me.
No.
You didn't know that I would be.
But I think this is a tendency with autism parents. I think we have a tendency to feel like, oh, I can tough through this.
I got to muscle through.
I got to muscle through.
I'm the same way. I keep saying my superhero cape keeps getting caught in the fan behind me. You need to let go of that.
Yeah, well,
and to be honest with you, I think that's just all of us as parents in general. Obviously it's amplified by 10 when we have a child on the spectrum, but I think on a whole we feel like it's our responsibility to have to deal with everything. It's our responsibility to have to manage everything, either through great circumstances or just on a regular day. But you know what? That's not necessarily the case. Everyone needs help. Everyone should take the help, and like I said, I think there's a lot more people out there willing to help than we accept, and things, little tricks, here and there can grant us the help, grant us the relief, grant us some of that time that we need to better ourselves so that we can be better parents.
So a parent just wrote in, Vince, I want to share this with you guys because this gets right to the heart of it. They said, one thing I have trouble dealing with is that all the stuff seems to hit the fan at once. My husband calls this a poop storm, only he doesn't call it a poop storm.
Yeah, right.
He says, we're in the middle of a storm. But anyway, this parent goes on to say, no joke, it's the same few weeks when it's IEP time, stuff at work is going down the tubes, my son's therapist or BCBA staff quit or something happens administratively, health insurance rejects stuff, one of the kids gets sick, and I swear everything else happens too. It makes me live life a lot of the time, even in between those huge life explosions, as though I'm waiting and watching for it to start again. I don't ever feel relaxed because I know it's just the calm before the next storm.
Oh, Vince, what can you say to this parent?
The biggest thing is schedule it out and prioritize. Don't feel that everything has to be done at once. Not everything has to be done at the same time. Map it out. Let's deal with one issue at a time so that we can not only experience the days, because again, just the thing that was missing in the email was just the regular stressors of the day, like we were saying, bills and lunch and dinners and laundry and all those things, right? Let's make sure that we're doing one priority time. We can postpone IEPs. We can talk with the insurance, prioritize what it needs to be done first and work our way through our list. I think a lot of times what happens is just when these perfect storms hit and everything crunches all within the same time, we feel that we get overwhelmed. We're underneath the avalanche and we feel that there's no way out. But if we can start setting things aside and deal with one thing at a time, and also using other people to help get some of this information or maybe help do some of the work for us, will help as well. And that's what we were just talking about asking for help. But the biggest thing that I see with a lot of families is their inclination to have to do everything at the same time, right? Instead of being able to prioritize, writing it down, calendaring it, and working on things one at a time. Even if it's just Monday, I'm going to work on this, Tuesday, I'm going to work on this, Wednesday, I'm going to work on this, in something that might be in a close time frame, but scheduling out, giving yourself the opportunity to predict when you're going to be able to work on it will lower your anxiety, because then you have a plan. Every time we have a plan, it helps us cope, it helps us organize, it helps us prioritize.
That is so true. And I just want to say to this mom, I can so relate to this because I sometimes I feel like I'm never present. And I preach this, in when I deal with families and when I write in my writings about families and how we need to have our own spiritual support. And you got to be present. You got to breathe it in, let it out, and realize the other shoe isn't always going to drop. And when you have a chance to take the time for yourself, You know, there's always going to be storms in life. But maybe today what you need is to take that walk around the block. Maybe you need to go take that yoga class at the community center. Maybe you need to just meditate. Maybe you and your husband need to find a date night so you can get some relief in the here and now.
Yeah.
Right. Break the norm. Break what's the norm and do something different. Do something that's gonna shake that up. Learn. And the other thing is learning a skill, learning a new strategy. Right. I think a lot of times when we're learning new ways to deal with stuff, this isn't a temporary thing. This isn't just for this time. Learn a new strategy, learn a new skill, how to prioritize these, how to schedule these, so that then, because like you had said, we know this is going to happen next year. We know IEPs and insurance, the reauthorizations are always going to keep coming through. But if we learn a new skill, the next time it comes through, it won't be as overwhelming. It won't be as anxious.
And I do think one of the things that I've started doing is saying no to things when I know I'm in that season.
Yeah.
You know, and sometimes I'm saying no well in advance, months in advance, and other times I'm saying no on the day of.
No is a complete sentence.
Yeah. You know, and we don't. I have a niece who says, "I'm sorry, but that won't be possible."
Right.
I love that, and you don't have to add why it's not possible.
A therapist taught me that. It was so simple. I'm like, really? You can say that to people?
Yes,
you don't have to give them like a paragraph after that
and
of
here's
everything
why,
you have to do.
and I have to get laundry done. No, you just say, "No, I'm sorry, that won't be possible," and you clear your decks a little
Boundaries.
bit so that it is. Vince, we thank you so much.
No problem.
You're such a big help to us. We get such an opportunity when we talk to you to learn. So we thank you so much, and we'll see you in April for Autism Awareness Month.
We will. We'll see you guys then.
Thank you, Vince.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back and have you read this letter.
Okay.
So stick with us. Get your tissues ready.
Okay.
Well, today is the One Hope Act Today for military families 10K and 5K run, walk, and family fun festival.
Thanks for coming out to support this awesome cause.
What I'm trying to accomplish here is to get more people involved, more people to be aware of autism as a disorder so that they can be more involved in this effort to help people find resources.
Pull that belly button in, get a nice balance there.
This is an incredible event. I'm very passionate about it. Autism is affecting so many kids across the United States, and I also support our military.
2, 3, 4.
My name's Gunnery Sergeant Sean Tajma, working with the School of Infantry West. I'm currently running with 1st Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion. I personally involved with this because my son Jacob has autism. I just want to say thanks to ACT Today for what they're doing to help my family and other military families with autism.
Here we go, let's hear it for the 2nd Light Infantry.
Some of the main sponsors here, of course, One Hope Wine is the title sponsor.
What we do is we donate 50% of our profits back to different partner charities, one of them being ACT Today that does a fantastic job.
ACT Today is very dear to my heart because when my husband was deployed, they were there when we didn't know how we were going to make things happen. They give so much to the military family, and it comes at a time when you just don't know how you're going to make ends meet. So to me, it's more than just an event, and it's more than just a grant. It's a gift.
All right, you guys, have we gone over the rules?
Thank you all, to the teams, to the individuals that donated to this fantastic cause out here again this year. The event got larger.
People ask me why military families with autism. Why does ACT Today have that as a special program? I'll tell you why. Because our military families should not have to fight two battles. One, to protect our country, and another, to get services for their children. They move so often. Every time they move, they have to start again. We owe it to them. And it just was a tremendous success. So I just want to say thanks to everybody for taking part in it.
Check this out, Marine. See all these wonderful people? All you gotta do next year, Marine, Double Dog, 2 for 100, sign up with me, staff or an email, and I'm gonna take you out here, do a little 5K, little PT early in the morning. After that, you can have the time of your life. After that, I might even be able to get you a letter of appreciation, maybe a little libo time. How's that sound?
sign up for next year because this is an event that comes on and on. It's a win-win situation here.
Welcome back.
We're back, okay. As everybody knows, our Actor Day for Military Families Run and Festival is coming up on March 28th in San Diego. We've been promoting this. Please donate. You can donate to Shannon's team. You can donate to Wyatt's Warriors. Jem's Awesome-rama.
Jem's Awesome-rama. Always-rama is what he says.
Okay.
It looks like Awesome-rama team.
Okay.
And you can start your own
teams. You can start your own team. You can register, and you can do a virtual run. You don't have to be with us in San Diego.
You can be on our team and be a virtual
and just
runner.
go out and run a 5K that day or another day. But we need your help because we are behind this year in terms. It's a couple of weeks earlier. We couldn't get the venue in April, Autism Awareness Month, and it's really catching everybody off guard because it's 3 weeks early. So
and you know, let's be honest. And you've had some things going on in your family that it would be nice if we could pick up the slack for her.
Well, thank you.
Wouldn't that be nice if we could all raise a little bit of money to take some heat off of
We're
Nancy?
a small organization. We're not like Autism Speaks with all their fundraising power for their walk. So it's kind of when I read
use the help.
Yes, we could. So anyway, here's a letter that came in this grant cycle that I would love to be able to give this family a grant. And if we raise enough money at the run, perhaps we will. Now, a fence cost around $5,000, a large fence. So listen to this. It's from a military mom. Right now we need help putting a fence around our pond to keep one of our sons safe who is recently diagnosed with autism. We got our home before we knew. He has already been through so much, but we can do this. Money is very tight. We are grateful for our family, but we are scared of our son running to the pond. He tries every chance he can. We are afraid of him drowning. Here's a reflection of my family. Thanks for your time. At last, a moment to breathe and time to reflect. Chaos ensued when my husband was injured in Iraq by a roadside bomb. In a single breath, life as I knew had changed. Once a strong, standalone man who can do anything for me now needed my help. He faced a physical and emotional pain most of us cannot even begin to understand, not even me. A few years later, I was attacked and had my back broken, now healed, but left with emotional scars. He was there to hold my hand. We stayed on the roller coaster of life and emotion for years. Then one day we realized somehow the ride seemed to slow. We accepted one another as maybe broken, but we were whole together. Nothing could break the love and bond we share, so we thought. We had one more huge trial to face. We found out we had twins on the way. Wow, something wasn't right at 29 weeks. They were born so the twins and I wouldn't lose their lives at 29 weeks. I have another son I must live for as well. The boys were born and stayed in the NICU for weeks, which pulls on the strengths of our family core. Will they make it? What if they don't come into our family? Once home, the smaller of the twins' heart stops. He is resuscitated in the NICU when we learn his heart dose does not look good. Following many surgery and repairs, this keeps failing. Dawning we might lose our son, our hearts broke. Then giving all our hope what left, we to God, our Lord, put angels in our way to get our smallest son's heart to beat stronger. Then the longest hours of our life ensued when machines pumped our son blood for him while doctors moved as swift and gentle as they could to give him new life. Time passed. Then our son looked up at us and said, Mama, I knew my God gave me my tiny Tim. He then was diagnosed with autism, but he can dance. Now my son can dance. This is my story and the understanding of the power of love and God's wisdom. Through all the pain, fear, and doubt, love and kindness held my family together. Now I can just spend my time loving and providing for my family. My family is a gift, and so is yours. Remember, when faced with adversity, love and give thanks to God, and you will find your peace somewhere in the midst of your chaos and tranquility. Life may be a trial, but all we need to do is love those in our path. Oh, and never forget to dance. Gratitude for what I can do. We do not choose our lives, nor can we change our lives at times. We can learn to accept our lives, take responsibility for our lives, then live our lives to their fullest capabilities for life. We so appreciate your consideration for a fence for our son.
And these are the kinds of letters that Nancy gets on a regular basis. These are the kinds of need that people have. If you've watched the show before, you know that drowning is the #1 cause of death when an individual has an autism spectrum diagnosis.
And this is one of 7 families that need fences right now that in this grant cycle, and that doesn't count the ones. Fences are expensive. There's no fencing, there's no nationwide fencing company that gives us discounts. They're usually local people, and you know they will give a slight discount, but these are people fighting for their livelihood too.
Right.
So
but
you
these are families in need. This is a family that's done service. The dad,
his husband was injured in a roadside bombing. They've had many challenges.
These are the kinds of families that you're supporting when you sign up to be on one of our teams,
or when you make a donation,
be a virtual runner. So please do that. The address is there on the screen, and we're going to continue to talk about that next week. Speaking of which, next week we have 2 guests that are going to be with us for a film that you had the opportunity to go to the theater and see, talking about, it's a very seemingly controversial film, even though they say on all their publicity that they are not anti-vaccine, but they shed some light about some things that people want to know about safety of certain vaccines and certain ingredients and the timing with which they're given.
Yes, and RFK Jr. very involved in this effort.
The film is called Trace Amounts, and we're going to have the filmmaker and the director and the filmmaker and the star of the film with us. We're out of time. Tomorrow, Dr. Del Nadowski, Dr. Jonathan Tarbox with us. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me.
And yourselves a hug from me. Make it a great day.
Bye-bye for now.